Hello to you all and thanks for tuning in. This is Walter Curtis speaking to you from Studios 4071 in the southern mountains of Argentina. And what I would like to talk to you about today is working with loops. So when you're using loops and samples in your production, or any pre-recorded material, or any preset that you might dial in for that matter, you need to keep in mind that many other people are using the same tools, the same material, the same loop and sample collections that you are using. So you need to give it a bit of thought in terms of what you're going to do to customize those loops to match your musical vision more closely and to stand a bit out from the crowd. So here are a few things, a few tricks that you can use. Easy, fast, and very, very effective. Now consider the situation here. We have this loop which will be the foundation for our song. We're going to use this loop throughout our project, and the main reasons why someone chooses a loop over another loop is basically, first, the sound quality, because the hits or the instrument or whatever it is that is being used are exactly what we need for our project, and second, the groove of the loop. That means the way the rhythmic map of that particular loop, and that is also very important. So what we need is to find a way to have individual control over these things and have as much control as possible in order to keep what we like and to change what we don't like. And overall, it'll give us the chance to customize the sound and the groove for our purposes. Now, the best way to do that would be to dissect the loop into its individual components, load those components onto a sampler instrument, and bring that instrument into our project and take it from there. Now, in Logic, we can do exactly that. So people who have worked with Reason are familiar with the Rex file format will find this very familiar. Now, Logic's implementation is admittedly quite cool, so it's very easy, it's very straightforward. So here's what you do. You select the audio file you want to use, you go to the local menu and choose Convert Regions to New Sampler Track. Now with this command we are telling Logic that we want to create a sampler instrument with this audio information we are selecting, along with a certain set of parameters that we have to choose in this window. Now the first important decision we have to make is whether we want to create the zones for a sampler instrument from regions that we have selected, or from transient markers that Logic will place on our audio file for us. Now these two are very, very different in the way they operate, and I'm going to do two different videos, one for each choice there, because they will take you down different production paths. So for now we're going to select the transient marker options, and by hitting OK, if we read here what it says, a EXS instrument with 14 zones will be created, including a MIDI trigger region. Now this is important to understand. I mean, it might be a bit confusing, but it's important that you get this information, because that will help you understand the way it works. In this option, the transient marker option, Logic is taking the audio file, analyzing it, and finding the transients of every sound. So every time it finds a transient, it will place a marker there, because it is assuming that on every transient a new sound and a different sound will occur. So we want to have control over all those different sounds, so we are separating the audio files into spaces between transients. So it isn't actually, Logic isn't chopping up the audio file, it is only making internal selections from marker to marker, which will tell the sampler from where to play whenever I press a key. So the distinction is small, but it's very important. Right, so that's what we keep clicked for the moment, and we're going to call it something like loop main retro. So now if we hit OK, we get Logic's machine into clicking, and we hope that Logic will do its magic. Now it will take a moment or two because it's quite a lot of thinking. Now here we are. Logic has created a EXS24 instance with our sampler instrument already loaded, and has also created a MIDI region with our MIDI triggers. And remember, we talked about these triggers being aligned to the transients in our audio file. So, and you can see that the audio file has been muted automatically, so when we play back the MIDI region, it is no longer the audio file what we hear, it's the MIDI file playing. So at this point we are very free to do whatever we want with this groove now, because we have access to its individual components via MIDI, and that is precisely what we wanted, and that's pretty cool. Good. Now we are in the position of customizing our loop a little bit to make it fit our musical vision more closely. So suppose we have a toolbar pattern going on here. I would recommend we make a copy of this original region, so just in case we're going to go back to the beginning. So I'm going to merge these two together so we have a clear shot at what we're doing. So now it is about, this is where personal taste is very important. Now I'm going to do a few changes. You can do as many changes as you want. And I suppose we have that thing there to create a little stutter effect. That's good. Let's do that again here. Now we have the twice the same is probably not so great. Right, so that's good. Let's try to get a snare fill, a very short fill at the very end of it. Good, that's good as well. Now suppose we want to have, which one is the right, I suppose we're going to have that as a kind of a hi-hat going there. Right, kind of like that. We repeat that again. No. There we go. Which one is the second one? Is right, I'm trying to get a bit of a question. Right, so kind of a question and answer thing between those two halves. Right, now let's see if we can right. So I think you get the idea of what you can do, and with a bit of work you can do really very cool things here. Okay, so now that you've found something you like, you can hone into detailed work and start playing around with the velocity settings, using ghost nodes and things like that. If you remember at the beginning where we said we have two things in a loop that are very important, one being the groove and the other one being the sonic quality of the material we're using. Now this part of the process would be changing and altering and working on the groove of the loop we've used. Now we have to see what we can do in terms of sound quality, and for that we are not going to touch the MIDI region anymore, but we're going to go into the sound producing side of our sampler instrument, our new one. Now meet EXS24 Logic's built-in sampler. So I'm going to show you just a few things that you can play with, the most obvious of which is the filter. We turn it off, we turn it on, we turn it to fat, and this is what it'll do. No secrets there, just cutting off the frequency, cutting off your audio at a certain set frequency. You can also play around with the resonance. You can move them in sync by clicking in. You can add a bit of drive. Now these are very typical changes that you can do that are very effective and will change everything very fast. Another trick that isn't normally associated with drum programming is the glide and pitch settings. Now the glide setting will specify the time of the glide, while the pitcher will tell you, does it come from above, does it come from below that certain pitch, and how far away are we going down, from down up or from up downwards, to get that pitch that is being played. Now in this case we are having very fast succession of pitches, so having very long glide times will not make a lot of sense. You see, it never gets to the actual pitch, so you don't get the glide effect, you get more a pitch shifting effect. Same here. Right, so play around with those. You can find that it actually makes an enormous difference depending on the audio material you're using. Okay, so you get the idea, I'm sure, and what you will finally incorporate into your own music of all of this will depend on your personal preferences, the genre and style you're working in, your musical influences and so on. Don't be afraid to experiment, tweak around, check the manual if you have doubts, go to YouTube, and just don't be afraid to mess about with all the settings. I think that's all from me for today, and I'll see you around in some of the other videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll speak to you very, very shortly. Cheers.